Ladies and gentlemen, it's April 17th. It's Friday. Welcome to episode 17 of the Chalk Dinosaur podcast. It's been over a month since I did an episode. The last episode I did was on March 11th, which was a Wednesday, and it was the day before everything got canceled in the world. And so much stuff has happened since then in the world and in, Chalk Dinosaur world as well. So what has happened since then in the Chalk Dinosaur world? We'll start there. I made the theme song. I got commissioned to do my first 2 game theme songs. One of them has not been released yet. I really like the song I made for that one. And then one of them did get released. It was a game called Virus Popper. It was like an educational virtual reality game. And the company that made it was the company that found my song Star Blazer, because they had a game called Star Blazer, and they found the song and got in touch and wanted to use it in their game. So that kind of started the relationship, and then they actually hired me to make a song for their next 2 games, which was great because that has been something I've wanted to do for a long time. I even started making hypothetical game music over the years, trying to kind of build a portfolio. I even went so far as to create the storyline and all the levels for a hypothetical game called Cotton Candy Mountain, and I was going to make the music for each level of the game. But yeah, I only made the first level, and I have not prioritized that project. So it's been many years, and so far I have one song, Cotton Candy Mountain, level 1, or world 1, level 1 or something. Still on the to-do list, of the eventual to-do list, make an 8-bit style album. So Virus Popper, it's a VR game. It's like an arcade style game, but also integrates CDC recommendations for hygiene and kind of social distancing stuff, like all these elements of what's being recommended. Those are implemented in the game in different ways. And they were trying to put this game out and make it really fast. And they got in touch with me to see if I would make a theme song for it. And so I did, and the first version I sent them was way too dark. I realized it after I sent it, and they got back to me, and they were like, "Yeah, this is great, but we were looking for something light-hearted and just light and good feeling." And the thing I sent them was very dramatic and kind of apocalyptic sounding. I think it had something to do with what was going on at the time. But then I took another crack at it, and they liked the second version that I sent them. Or no, the second version, yeah, it was more on the right track, but they wanted vocals. They really liked the vocoder sound of Star Blazer and the vocoder that I did in the other theme song I wrote for them, which hasn't been released yet. So I did a third revision, and this time it had vocals in it, like vocoder, which vocoder is you speak into a microphone and you hook it up to a synthesizer, and then it sounds like a synthesizer voice So, yeah, Daft Punk uses vocoders a lot. It's different than a talk box. A talk box is what Peter Frampton used, or Zap, or it's the thing with the tube that goes in your mouth. Completely different sound, completely different mechanism. Vocoder is much easier and less intrusive and like less of a hassle to use. Anyway, I don't want to get too technical about that stuff. It was a good challenge, though, to try and come up with words for a game like that. Virus Popper. So that was a fun exercise, and I'm happy that they liked what I came up with, and I'm really happy that they released it. It's on Spotify now, and it comes up under the Chalk Dinosaur discography, which is really great because I really liked what I came up with, and I was kind of sad handing it over because I wanted to share it. And so then when I saw that it got released on Spotify, I was very happy about that. And hopefully they'll do the same thing with the next game that I made the theme song for, and I really like that one, and hopefully that'll become available on Spotify in the future. I'm not sure when that game's coming out. It's another like arcade style VR game, virtual reality, where I don't know if you ever played the game on the calculator, Uncle Worm, where you control a worm and you like eat these dots, and the more dots you eat, the longer the worm gets and the harder it is to kind of not eat yourself. So it's kind of a variation of that game, but in 3D and controlled with your body instead of with arrows on a calculator. So anyway, coming up with words for a song like that was a fun challenge too, and I'm pretty happy with words that I came up with that I actually like them and feel like they say something that's kind of applicable to life and not just the worm game. So that was fun. And so I was very lucky and grateful that I had the opportunity, one, to even just have work to do, like paying work to do, after everything closed. And also very grateful to have the opportunity to do something for a game, which is something I've always wanted to do. And this kind of gets my feet wet and gives me a little bit of starts to build a little bit of a portfolio. So hopefully I can do more in the future. It's a really fun task, especially when this was a lucky scenario because the creators of the game they like Chalk Dinosaur music, and when they were giving me direction for what kind of song they wanted for the game, they pretty much they referenced one of my songs, Star Blazer, and they said, we want something like that. So it's definitely a lot easier to write something in the style of yourself than to emulate, somebody that might be not quite you. So that was cool. I'll post a link to the song and the game and their company and stuff like that. I'll post that stuff in the show notes. So yeah, 2 game theme songs. That was the first thing that I did after everything kind of closed down. And then I released an album called Peace. And this is a collaboration between me and my cousin, Bobby Foster. And we've been kind of putting these together since 2015, and it's completely different than anything in the catalog. It's like a meditative album, pretty ambient. All of the music kind of just us channeling the most pleasant and peaceful sounds that we could. And it's not, just, it's a little bit more than just like droning, because it does involve a lot of drones, synthesizer drones and pads and kind of these ambient, luscious backgrounds. And then my cousin Bobby he got really into indigenous flutes, and so it's kind of a combination of synthesizers and indigenous flutes, and he's really good at that and can play these really nice wooden flutes with really great expression, and I really like I really like the music that came out of it. Now it's a much more specific type of music, so for anybody going into that album kind of looking for regular music, like stuff with a beat and stuff with the groove, that is not what that is. Peace is an album for relaxing and kind of calming, and it always does that for me. It really puts me in a calm space. And so I think people that are looking for that will be really into that album, and people that are not looking for that they'll just have to skip over that one. But I was really happy to finally put those out. It felt like the right time to release some calming and peaceful stuff amidst all of the anxiety and kind of societal stress and worry. So that's a free album. It's available everywhere. Okay, and then when everything closed, I wanted to release some fundraiser albums because there were so many people that the job that they relied on was no longer available because things were closed and for an indefinite amount of time. So I felt like I wanted to try and do something to help, and how could I use my music production capacity to do something. And so the first album that I put out was called Service, and that came out on March 26th, I think. Yeah, March 26th. And Service, it's called Service because all of the sales are donated to service industry workers in my life, in my community. So if you are interested in buying that album, it's available at chalkdinosaur.com, and it just it seemed like one thing I could do to kind of, I wanted to be able to donate more money to these places and people, but I don't have that much money to give. But it gave me the idea of, maybe releasing an album would be a way to kind of collect money from people who, were doing well and thought, wanted to get new music and also support the community in some way. And it's 3 songs. One of the songs features a guitar solo from John Henderson, who is the guitar player in the live band. And these 3 songs, one of them was a project, the first track on the album, Electric Friends, that was a track that I made in November. It just didn't have, there was no fitting place for it. I was going to probably make some more tracks like it and then release an album of that style. But I figured, well, now seems like a good time to just package it up and release it. And I made 2 more songs on the album, and yeah, it was just a short one, just a way to exchange music for money and then have money to donate. And so far, I've been able to raise about somewhere between $800 and $900. So pretty successful. It's like a drop in the bucket, but it's better than nothing, and it's making somewhat of a positive impact. It's not making a negative impact. It's helping, and even if it's just a little bit, I'm hoping that there will be other people helping, and the cumulative help from everybody will help will just help hold the community together. And so that was one of the fundraiser albums, Service. And as I was finishing that one up, I was thinking about wanting to do another one specifically for the Rex Theater, because they have they've gone out of their way. Ben Pennegar and Gray Area and the Rex Theater, they've gone out of their way to help me and my band on several occasions. They've always been such strong supporters and very encouraging and helpful. And I saw a post that Ben Pennegar made about, he set up the Rex Theater Employee Staff Relief Fund because, all of their staff had to be laid off because the Rex Theater is just inoperational at this point because, there's no shows. And Ben, who he's just done an amazing job raising money to make sure that he can take care of his employees during this time. He started early, and I wanted to do something to help, and so I got together with the band, Nick O'Haller and my brother Andrew Belcastro, the bass player, and John Henderson, the guitar player. They helped put together all these ideas, and the result was some really cool music that is way different than anything we've made before. And it was the fastest album cycle I've ever had. It was about 2 weeks from when we laid the first brick to when it was released. And that was a really interesting experience. But yeah, 100% of sales from that album, which is called With You, is going to the Rex Theater Staff Relief Fund. And so far raised about $900. I think it's been a week. It's definitely tapered off now. I haven't done a great job of getting it out there. But yeah, just another one of those things that's like, it doesn't begin to really fix the problem, but it helps move the needle in the right direction, hopefully. And hopefully, other people are, combined with other people's support and contributions, it'll have, a big cumulative effect, hopefully. And maybe, I've seen some other people have started doing similar things, kind of trying to help each other, which is nice to see. So, yeah, the recording process for that album was great because it was so fast, and fresh, it was great. We got together upstairs, me, Nick, and Andrew, who I live with, and kind of plugged our instruments in and just started jamming a little bit. And then as soon as we came upon something that was cool, that we liked, we just immediately recorded that, like a loop of it, and just like kind of started mapping out the sections. And so it came together really fast, and it felt really good to be making music at that speed, like right on the cusp of the creativity. And then we would leave sections open. We would create sections in the song, like, okay, this will be Henderson's section, and then we would send over a version of the song with the space left for John, and then he would add his stuff to it. And then for one of the songs, the title track, With You, John had sent over a voice memo of an idea. It was that main melody and chord progression. He sent that over, and then I took that idea and added some additional sections, sent it back to him to add another solo over one of the new sections. And then, yeah, that was how that one came together. That was a John idea that I helped to flesh out. And then Peace of Mind, the last song on the album, that was a song that Nick wrote. And I'm not exactly sure when he had written that. I think it was a couple years ago, actually, but we started to record it in October. And he wrote the verses, and then I wrote the chorus. And so Nick sings and wrote the verses, the lyrics, and the vocals, and then I did the vocals and the lyrics for the chorus. And some of the, I think when Nick brought the song to me, he had a rhythm guitar part, and he had a guitar melody, and then I added some slide guitar melodies, and we worked together to kind of arrange it into figure out like a song structure for it. So yeah, that was an idea from Nick, and it was just really nice to be able to get through a project that fast, because I have a difficult time sitting on ideas for too long, because when you first come up with an idea that you like, you have this energy and kind of momentum. You're excited about something that you're hearing, something that you came up with. So you have this excitement about an idea that you have. And I found it's definitely best to take that idea as far as you can when you have that feeling and when it's fresh and that the idea is like inspired in that moment. Go as far as you can with it. As soon, in that initial couple hours or couple days, just like try to finish it. And so many of my favorite songs and stuff, that's how they came together. Just 90% in one session. And I have always found it to be challenging to, get 40 to 50% into a song, be excited about it, and then not do anything with it for a while, and then having to come back to it later and trying to get back into the mindset and the inspired state that you were in when you came up with the initial idea. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's really hard to recapture that energy. And so whenever possible, I like to just cruise through the writing and get as far as I can as fast as I can, because you can always rework something, but you can't always recapture the feeling of inspiration that you have when you are excited about something that's coming together. And that's kind of the deal that I would make with myself to have the decisiveness to make choices about a song. Like, it's very easy to be indecisive about how to structure a song, what melody to use, like, is this good enough? The deal that I would make with myself is just make a choice. You can come back to it and change it later. And most of the time, that never happens. The initial iteration of it is many times the one that ends up being like the best. And when I sit on ideas for too long and think about them too much, it can become very easy to get caught up in just over tweaking, overthinking, which is, the enemy of creativity for me, is overthinking and getting too perfectionistic about things, and becoming kind of like immobilized by thinking too much about, could this be better? Could that be better? Obviously, there's a balance there, because you want to make something as good as it can be, but you also, at the same time, you have to be able to let go of things. Otherwise, you'll keep working on the same song. You could keep working on it for years and years and never be happy with it, and then no one will ever get to hear it. And then you'll be stuck continuing to put all this time into this idea and not really making much progress on it. There's definitely a point of diminishing returns when it comes to tweaking an idea. So finding that golden zone where, like, just honing the awareness of, of reaching that point of diminishing returns and then moving on when you hit that. That's an ongoing kind of skill or ability that is ongoing, trying to, always trying to get better at realizing when I've reached a point where I'm forcing something and it's not really beneficial anymore. So it was really cool to work on that album with you and to do it so fast, because, well, it was, there was a very crystal clear purpose and vision for that album in my head. I wanted to put together a small album as fast as possible that I could use as a fundraiser for the Rex Theater. And I got the help from the rest of the band, who contributed their ideas and time. So thank you guys for that. Definitely couldn't have done that one without you. And having that clear vision and sense of purpose for putting it together made the decision making a lot easier. It made it a lot easier to avoid getting perfectionistic about things. And, it's not a perfect album, that's for sure. None are, I guess, and that's not really the goal. It's just the process is fun, and kind of completing ideas is fun, and hearing these new ideas take shape is fun, and getting to do it at that pace was a good experience. So I definitely noticed a big difference in the writing and, mixing and just the whole production process when there was kind of a clear goal and vision in mind. And I've noticed the same thing with my TV composing work, or with like these video game songs that I did. When there's a clear vision and purpose and direction, it comes together a lot easier and a lot faster. I've always kind of wondered about it, like for the TV composing work, I've probably made like 1,000 tracks for TV of all different styles, and those come together really quickly, really easily, in a lot of, not always easily, but I don't have a choice to deliberate on small details for a long amount of time, because the longer I take, the less like worth it is for me to do. I'm trying to do it, as fast as possible. I'm not overly attached to the ideas, because they're not going to be, Chalk Dinosaur related. They're just products for TV. So I'm not attached to them, or I try not to be. The decisions are much easier to make. And as a result, the output is, I can make stuff really fast when I'm not overly perfectionistic or attached. And a lot of times the results sound really good. Like I really like what comes out of that. And it's been kind of perplexing that I can make 3 good ideas, good song, like completed song ideas for, that commercial work in like one day. And then it could take me months, even years to finish a song for Chalk Dinosaur. It's really interesting how much different it feels when I'm writing with like a strong attachment to what I'm doing, and when I have no direction and no vision for what I'm trying to do. Like with the TV and the video game stuff, like there's a clear direction. Like we need this, like this is what we want. So then every choice I make can be directed towards that vision. And that makes it a lot easier. And, I've tried, well, I guess I haven't tried that much. No, I have. I was like, well, why don't I do that for my own music and just like come up with a vision and a direction and make something and set my own guidelines. Because a lot of times I'll just be making music completely aimlessly, with just completely open-ended. And that can definitely lead to some cool things, but a lot of times it can be challenging. That's probably one of the reasons why it can take a lot longer for me to make Chalk Dinosaur music than it probably should. And so one of the albums I did that was Crystal Coast. That was an album it's like a tropical vintage surf and like exotica album inspired by surf music and quote exotica music like Arthur Lyman and Hawaiian steel guitar music. And so I had a very clear vision of what kind of album I wanted to make. I wanted it to be all really positive, happy, beachy music. And every decision I made went into that vision, was guided by that vision. I wanted it to be like a vintage, just like a very pleasant album with, best vibes possible. And that made it easy to make decisions on that group of songs. Did it serve that vision? Yes or no? And then just do the things that serve that vision. And that album came together very quickly. I started working on that right after I released Bounce, which was, I think, in August of 2017, and then started working on this beach vintage surf album, and I released that in November, I think. So that was that was fast. Nowhere near as fast as this last album with you. But so that was one instance where I kind of set guidelines to follow. I should do that more. Dawn was like that too. All of the songs were in the chill wave, kind of retro 80s style. And that came together really quickly too, because there was a very clear direction. I'm trying to think what else was like that. Those are the two main ones, but it's something I would like to try more. Concept album with a clear direction. It just makes it easier to make decisions. And that's something I also, I want to develop that kind of vision and target direction and purpose, whatever you want to describe it as, with my professional career as a whole. Because like with music production, there are a million different ways you can go, and everybody seems to have their own unique path. So I feel like the majority of the struggle is just figuring out what path, what direction you want to go. And then I guess once you know what direction you want to go, once you have some kind of target in sight, you can find a way there. But if you don't have any kind of direction or target and you're just kind of wandering, it can begin to get frustrating or discouraging, or you can run into some issues there. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and this is obviously might be tired of hearing about this, but I wanted to at least get this recorded of what the experience has been like so far from my perspective with this past month and a half and the coronavirus outbreak. Because, this is a very historic time, and in 10 years, 20 years, it will probably be, I'll probably have forgotten a lot about the details of what life was like during this. So I wanted to record that just to kind of, for my own interest, listening back later. Because, yeah. So the timeline, that's important, because things accelerated it was really crazy once things hit a certain point, the acceleration. We played in Chicago on January 24th. It was a great show. Coronavirus was not on the mind at all, except that weekend, the first U.S. case of coronavirus was reported in Chicago, where we were. And so it was on the news, and we were at the bar. I remember seeing that news story and not really thinking much of it, hoping, we didn't get it, but not worried about it at all. So fast forward to February 29th, that was the last show we played. It was Leap Day. We were opening for RJD2. The show was one of the best shows we've gotten to play in terms of the crowd. I mean, that was one of the most packed rooms we've had the opportunity to play for. And yeah, that was awesome. And that was still, that was not big news that the coronavirus was not really even, nobody's really concerned about it. At least it didn't seem that way. But right after that show, things started to accelerate and kind of slowly started to hear more and more about it. And so fast forward to the last podcast I did. I think it was March 11th or 12th. March 11th. It was a Wednesday. The day after that, I remember Thursday, that was when everything really intensified. And that was the day that all the sports got canceled and all these bands, these big bands were making announcements that they were canceling their shows. That was Thursday, March 12th. And it was like 1 day difference. Everything just got 10 times more intense in terms of the response to the situation and the seriousness of it and how serious people were taking it. So that Thursday, I remember my friend Sean sent a pretty ominous text to our group text message about the seriousness of the situation and you guys better prepare for it and blah blah blah, because he works, I'm not exactly sure what he does, but he's involved in like food safety or food supply chain or something like that, in a position where he was getting he got some information, I guess before it became public, that this was going to be a lot more serious than people thought, and people need to prepare to quarantine and not leave their house and stuff like that. Which even still, when I read that in the morning, I was like not really sure what to think of it. But pretty much once the sports leagues canceled their seasons, that was kind of a big eye opener, because that's such a huge industry that I just could not imagine that happening. So that definitely made things seem different than perhaps the swine flu or the avian bird flu or SARS or any of these other pandemics that kind of bubbled up but never got to a point where it was affecting everybody on this level. So, yeah, seeing the sports canceled, seeing one band after another cancel their shows, started to get the reality of the situation started to sink in, and it continued to sink in more and more throughout that week, the following week, and as venues started to just cancel all their shows, and the grocery stores, I was amazed at how fast those got cleaned out. Pretty much in 1 day, on that Thursday, for the next couple weeks, you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere, except for, I found some at the gas station, but yeah, it was not on the shelf, at least where I live in Southside, it felt like weeks. Chicken was completely gone. I don't eat chicken though, so it didn't matter to me. Frozen pierogies, people went for those. But even rice was gone for a little bit. So that was kind of interesting, kind of unexpected and a little bit of a reality check that these things could happen that quickly. Because when I go to a grocery store, it looks like there's so much in there, and they've got like a stock room it just was very surprising to see it all go that fast. Fortunately, it's not like there's a food shortage. People were just panic buying, which was a term I had never heard before, but, made sense. And it's kind of a chain reaction thing, because when people see other people doing that and they see things start to become unavailable, then their reaction is, uh-oh, if I don't get some now, it'll be gone and I won't get any. So everybody's just doing that. And but luckily that has settled down and it's pretty back to normal. But, that was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that. I guess a little taste of, I don't know, like, that's just something we're so used to here in the United States and first world countries probably, is, just being able to get whatever you want at any time. And then got a little taste of, well, if you want certain things, you have to go at a certain time, or you have to go to a certain place farther away, or you might not be able to get it at all. So that was interesting. So, yeah, we had a couple big things lined up that got canceled. The first thing to go was I was going to DJ at the Ascend members party on Saturday, March 14th. That was the first thing to get canceled. And that was still at a time when I was like, are things really going to keep getting canceled? Like, the severity, the seriousness of the situation still was not fully set in my mind. And so, yeah, that got canceled. And then 2 days after that, our Thunderbird show got canceled, which that was going to take place on Thursday, March 26th. That was going to be the first headlining show that we've ever kind of curated and put together. And so I was in a really weird spot. I was trying to promote the show. I didn't feel like I should stop promoting the show until I got a definite cancellation from the venue. So I was continuing to try and get people to come to it as things were getting canceled left and right, and trying to mentally stay prepared to play unless it gets canceled. And we were all kind of feeling like that was the way it was headed, but even still, like, nobody really knew how far it was going to go. But yeah, it did get canceled. And a couple days after that, another show we had a show lined up to open on a Friday May 1st. We were going to open for Papadosio, which that's a big deal to us because, back in 2012, 2013, we saw a lot of Papadosio and had some very formative and just awesome times seeing them play at the Workout and the All Good. And so it was going to be, we were really looking forward to having that opportunity. We've never played with them before, haven't gotten a chance to meet them in a professional setting. Fortunately, that show is rescheduled for December. So it didn't just get canceled, it got rescheduled. However, now there's, I saw that article about someone saying, we're not going to have large gatherings until fall of 2021. But it's unclear if that includes shows, shows. I know it seemed to be speaking more of like large festivals, but yeah, who knows what it'll be, if there's like a 500 person show, would that be included in that fall of 2021? That's just that's such a long haul, 18 months almost. I don't know, something like that. So anyway, hopefully we'll get to play that show, but yeah, we're looking forward to that one. Shortly after that, Dome Fest got canceled. We were going to play on Dome Fest this year, which is the Pigeons playing ping pong. It's their festival in West Virginia. And last year we got to play, and it was really awesome. It's like they keep it pretty small, but they bring in a bunch of really great musicians. And we got to see a lot of musicians that we have had a lot of great experiences listening to and found inspiration in. And we got to have great show viewing experiences, like being up close. And then, being able to interact with these people and connect with some of the people who have inspired us, backstage, or in the VIP area. It was awesome. And so we were really looking forward to this year. And unfortunately, that didn't get rescheduled. That's just canceled until next year. So hopefully we'll be invited back next year. And then we were signed to play Electric Forest this year, and we were going to be in the second lineup announcement, which they were getting ready to make whenever all this stuff happened. So we were excited about that opportunity to get to go back and play at Electric Forest, this time as a full band, having kind of seasoned our set a good amount. We were looking forward to that. Unfortunately, it looks like that's just going to be canceled as well and not rescheduled. So hopefully we'll get invited to the next one. So yeah, it's really shaking things up, but not nearly as much for me and us in my household, our household, as it probably has for some other people, because we're all fortunate enough to be able to work from home right now. At least for now, I can still do work from home, although, Hollywood sets are closing, and I think I don't know if they're still filming shows, and I'm sure there's a lot of footage that people are still editing, but I'm not sure if they're still like shooting TV shows right now. So it's possible that in a certain amount of months, there will be a lot less to work on. So for now, day-to-day life for me hasn't changed much because I normally work from home, but the only difference is now, there's a lot less social interaction. I can't go to shows, jam with people, or go to Double Wide right next to my house and just get out there. But in general, it's pretty similar. And I have to say that I am definitely enjoying all the free time and enjoying the complete lack of obligations and pressure, which I do feel. I was starting to feel a lot of pressure from just the shows coming up, and kind of a little bit, just feeling a little stressed about that. So that is all gone, because there is no live music to be played right now. So, yeah, some of the big shows being canceled, that was disappointing, but definitely enjoying just the free time and the no pressure environment. Honestly, haven't felt bored. Maybe a little socially unstimulated, but fortunately, I live with my brother and one of our best friends, so I'm sure it's a much different challenge for someone who lives alone during this time. So how am I occupying my time, and like, what am I thinking about doing when this is over? Hold on. Need a drink here. So I've been wanting to make some music videos for Crystal Coast, that beachy, surfy album I was talking about earlier. Been wanting to make some music videos for it, using all this spare GoPro footage I have from over the years of our beach, my family's like beach vacations. Just a way to kind of do something with that. Kind of like a little yearbook music video, kind of just a documentary, something to watch later and kind of reminisce on those times. Also, got some surfing footage from my cousin Dylan, who's a young surfer who's is really good at what he does, and I'm excited to have some actual surfing footage of a family member to use in this music. I've been working on some music for a documentary that my friend Andrew is making. That hasn't taken up too much time, but I've done a couple ideas for it. I don't know if they'll get used or not, but that's one thing I've been working on. Been trying to get better at producing house music, like tech house. I guess you would call it tech house, or kind of like that house music it's not like based around chordal movement and melody. It's more atonal and just like tribal and rhythmic, and that's such an unnatural style of music for me to make. It's definitely been very challenging because when you listen to it, it's very repetitive, and it's very simple. There's not a lot of stuff going on, but the way that it's kind of modulated and the parts kind of the effects and like the way they modulate the energy and this kind of sounds they get, it's been really a lot more challenging than I expected to make like a tech house beat that doesn't sound too repetitive and that still has like, it keeps my interest. It's really tough. And just the way the music, that style of music is mixed is way different than what I normally do. There's almost no snare. It's like all kick, and instead of a snare, there's like a high end, like just like a lot of times just kick and clap. Whereas a lot of the music that I gravitate towards normally has like a fat snare, like a beat with a fat snare, or like a really present snare, powerful snare, and this like house music and tech house, the kind of stuff that I've been listening to, it's like very kick oriented. So I'm trying to listen to more to kind of, I think I just need to listen to more to wrap my head around it. But yeah, whenever I listen to a good mix, it's always, I like it a lot. So trying to wrap my head around that. It's something I would like to be able to produce and DJ. Although I'm still kind of trying to figure out what style of like electronic music I would want to specialize in, because right now, I do whatever style comes to mind in the moment. So, but like I was talking about earlier with kind of having a direction or a vision, and that making it easier to make progress, I want to do that with a certain style of electronic music and kind of really and get ingrained in that and explore, deeply into one style. At least maybe not for Chalk Dinosaur, but for something. Maybe alter ego. Aside from that, we are still planning a full band album. The last album that we released with you, the name of it, With You, that was a full band album, but that wasn't the full band album that we were planning on releasing. We still have a handful of ideas that we're trying to record and release at some point, as the next thing we do. So it'll kind of depend on when the studios open back up, because I really want to try and do this one live in a studio, at least the bulk of it, like the rhythm elements, guitar, bass, rhythm guitar, as much of it live as we can do, and then maybe save the solos or vocals or some of the trickier stuff, save that for at home. But even if we could just get drums and bass live together, it would be, and like a rhythm guitar, that would make a big difference. I mean, I think, during this time, what has it been like? I've been sleeping a lot. I've been relaxing a lot. Obviously been making a lot of music, but definitely sleeping and relaxing a lot. I've been kind of reading. I read a book, a fiction book. It was like the first fiction book I've read in a long time. Was it? It was Gregor the Underlander, or Gregor the Overlander. It was Suzanne Collins' first book, who was the author of The Hunger Games, and that was like the last fiction book that I got super absorbed in. So I thought I'd try out her first book. And I mean, it kept my attention enough to get to the end, but it wasn't, super gripping. But enough for me to keep reading all the way to the end, it's kind of hard for me to find those kinds of books where it keeps my interest enough to make it through to the end. So we'll see what happens. After that, I just started Handmaid's Tale. I don't know, I'm just like picking at random here. And there's definitely, I've gotten a lot more into nonfiction as an adult, just reading like either biographies or like self-help or psychology books or philosophy books. And I like those, but I've missed the way that fiction can capture and like activate your imagination, and you create the world that you're reading, you create it in your mind. And I just remember when you get really engaged in a story, in a well-written, well, I guess it doesn't matter how well-written it is. If you're really engaged in a fiction book, that's like a more detailed, more experiential that's like a stronger experience than, watching a movie or something like that. Like being absorbed in a world that like your mind has created. You haven't created it because the author created it, but like you're like manifesting it in your mind, and therefore you get really sucked into it whenever a story like absorbs you. So I miss that, and I'm trying to do that more. Practicing, now would be a great time to practice, but to be honest, I'm not doing it. I definitely played a lot when I was working on the albums that were released in March. Definitely played a lot, but in terms of like a structured practice for my instruments, I haven't done that. Yeah, the only thing I've really consistently practiced is like production, I guess. Like making recordings. It's kind of the way it's always been, and the practice comes through making the recordings. Not ideal, but there's only so much time in a day. But, here I am making excuses. I've definitely been spending a lot of time, really been battling my phone, the internet, TV, really been more challenging not getting sucked into those things during this time. So yeah, definitely an ongoing struggle with digital distractions. And, I kind of let myself indulge a good bit. The only thing I've really kept on track with is producing music and exercise. Everything else has gone completely inconsistent, especially my sleep. The sleep it got out of whack before the coronavirus stuff. And then once the stay-at-home order was in place, that definitely didn't help. It's interesting because it didn't change like how I should be waking up and going to sleep, but something happened where my body just shifted towards a nocturnal mode, and I've tried a lot to reverse that and get back to the early to bed, early to rise schedule, but my body is rejecting that. And despite my efforts to correct it, it usually ends up back at very late bedtime, very late sleeping in. Which I'm in a fortunate position where that's not a problem. Like, that's okay. I can still do the work that I need to do. But it is a little bit it doesn't have a good psychological effect. And the quality of sleep isn't as good because a lot of times it's broken up. Like last night, I tried to go to bed at 10:30. No, before, like 10:30. I think I slept for like 2 hours, and then I woke up. And then couldn't go back to sleep. This has been happening frequently where I'll like go to bed early, like, all right, I'm right on track. I wake up maybe like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then can't go back to sleep until maybe 6 o'clock, and then like 6 in the morning, and then sleeping until, I don't know, it just gets pretty messed up. Yeah, I tried to record this episode of the podcast last night when I was up and couldn't sleep, and probably gonna throw that one out. And I'm re-recording it now. I was in a weird place. All right, so I guess there's one more thing I wanted to talk about before I end this episode. I'm going to take a drink, and then I'll tell you what that is. I wanted to talk about doubt and managing self-doubt and my experience with that. As an artist or musician, and most likely anybody doing anything, doubt seems to have a constant presence. At least for me, I guess. I can only speak from my perspective, but doubt in my pursuit of a career in music as an artist, doubt is a constant thing. And it just comes in waves, and it varies in intensity. The career path of an artist or musician, at least for me, it feels like bushwhacking in the jungle, because I can't see what's ahead. It's low visibility, and it seems like everybody has to take a unique path and kind of forge their own way. And the same thing could be said for, life in general. Everybody's got their own path. But in terms of a career, music is very, there's no set path. It's not like you join a company and you're on a career path and then everything's laid out. I have no idea what is coming next and what to do. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty, can be stressful. And stress is, stressful times are usually when doubt starts to creep in. Whenever I'm stressed about the future, whenever I'm thinking about the future and unsure of what's going to happen and what I should be doing, that's when doubt starts to creep in. And it comes in waves, and it's all just, it's always just managing doubt in some degree. But sometimes, that's not on my mind at all. But for sure, there are strong waves of it that come, and they go. And I've been through the cycle of doubt a ton of times, just constantly in that cycle since I started trying to pursue this career and kind of make a life out of music. And I mean, so far in my experience, the best thing I've found to do whenever I get hit with a strong wave of doubt, doubt about, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right direction? Am I doing the things I need to be doing? Am I being too complacent? What do I even want in my life, professionally, like as a career and just in general? Whenever I start to get doubts about all that stuff, and it starts to hit me very strong, usually the best thing for me to do has been just to wait, just to, acknowledge the feeling, pay attention to it, kind of just try to detach, though, and observe the feeling. Don't make any rash decisions, and just wait. And, every time so far, the feeling dissipates, when I just wait and don't kind of like buy into it and engage with it and feed that feeling. If I just kind of wait and see what happens, sleep on it, it usually goes away. And so it's hard to kind of tell the difference sometimes between doubt based out of stress or fear and doubt based out of, do you really, what do you really feel like is right for you? So usually I've just been kind of just waiting. I'm like, well, if the feeling persists, then I'll, take it more seriously. But until it, if it just goes away like it usually does, then, I'm not going to act on that. I'm just going to wait and see how I feel in a day, in a week, in a month. And if it continues to persist, then I'll address it. And usually, it usually coincides with stress. So if there's a period of time where I've got a lot of stuff for work mixed with a lot of stuff for the band, or if there's a time when there's a bunch of shows, and then some of the shows are just two-man shows, which are different. We play different music for that when it's just me and Nick versus when it's the full band. And then there's like, when there's like a big collection of different stuff happening at the same time, and I kind of get worn out from that, or like, yeah, pressure of being prepared starts to get to me. Those are the times when I start to question, how much do I want to do this? And the antidote for that is usually action. Like when, if I get anxious before a show, or nervous or stressed out about a show, usually the root of that stress is fear of being unprepared. That is really the root of it. It seems like, the more prepared I am and the more confident I am in what is going to happen, the less stress I feel from it. And I've also noticed that, if I sit and think about these feelings of doubt and kind of like entertain these feelings, that kind of like feeds them and strengthens them. It doesn't really help usually. And what helps usually is, if I just play an instrument, if I just play guitar, bass, keyboards, just like if I can do something to get into the flow state where I'm just kind of not thinking and just playing, I start to feel a lot more empowered in the situation. Start to feel more like, okay, this is why I do this, because I like the way this feels. So that's always a way to kind of get out of the kind of anxiety-ridden land of doubt where I'm just, analyzing things, looking too far into the future, kind of speculating too much instead of just focusing on what can I do right now. And what's really interesting is that so many times when the waves of doubt that I'm feeling are the strongest, those are the times whenever I'll receive a random message from somebody, a stranger usually, a complete stranger, writing like a really encouraging message. And this has happened many times where I'm really, really doubting my direction and my path and my abilities and just everything. And then I'll get a really encouraging email or message from someone who, coincidentally happens to write to me about either, the music having a positive impact in their life, or just like how much they, appreciate it, or something like completely unprovoked, that just encourages me to carry on and continue. And it's really amazing how often that has happened, where the right words reach me at the right time. And the same thing has happened with events. I'll be, feeling discouraged or, going through this strong wave of doubt or something, feeling like on the brink of just, giving up and giving up trying to make a career out of this and just doing something else. And then getting some kind of offer to do something really cool. Like one of the times that happened was I was feeling that way, kind of considering just like starting to think about, well, maybe I should just, do something else. Like I was just feeling discouraged. And then we got invited to play Electric Forest, and which was like a dream come true. And so 100% wanted to do that. And, that gave me kind of a target. Back to that topic of target and vision and clarity, that gave a clear objective, be ready for this performance, do everything you can to do a good job for this. And so that informed all of my decisions and how to spend my time leading up to that. And, I knew what I had to do, and that's a good feeling when you know what you have to do, when you have a direction and you know what steps to take. That's a good feeling. So, and that's happened many other times too, where rejuvenating occurrences happen at perfectly timed ways. Makes me, just wonder about the whole connectedness of everything and what is, it's just so crazy that sometimes the coincidences are just too perfect to not start thinking that there's something going on there. So yeah, having a vision or target to work towards is so helpful, because then you know what you need to do, and knowing what you need to do is a good feeling. And it can be stressful. It can be a stressful feeling to not know what you need to do. And as a musician, as somebody who's trying to forge a career as a musician and artist, there is tons of that feeling of not knowing what you need to do. At least for me, not knowing, just so much uncertainty, so many options, for it's a completely unguided journey. So, yeah, developing some kind of vision or clarity I think that would really help a lot. But I think to develop that, it takes attention. It's so easy to drift through my days in a reactive state. Living in a purely reactive state leads to the feeling of being out of control for me. And obviously, there are a huge amount of things that are completely out of our control. But the way we live and the actions that we take are things that we have complete control over. And taking control of those things feels good. I'd really like the river analogy. So if I'm living in a reactive state, it feels like I'm in a boat being carried by the current, the momentum of life, at the mercy of the flow. But if I'm taking control of the things that I can, it feels more like I'm paddling. I'm still in the flow of the river, but I'm paddling. I'm controlling how I navigate the river. And if you've ever been canoeing or rafting through rapids, controlling how you navigate that turbulence makes the difference between getting through the turbulence or flipping over and potentially drowning. Like, you're still going down the river in that direction. You're not going to change that, but you can change kind of how you hit the turbulent parts. And it just feels very clearly what it feels like whenever I start to pay attention to and control the things that I can. versus when I'm just, as I said before, living in a reactive state, kind of just going with the flow, taking things like right as they happen, and not being ahead, but just going with the flow. So, I mean, one of the most helpful people that I turn to for guidance when I start to feel discouraged, powerless, drifting, or lost is Jocko Willink. His simple message of taking responsibility for the things you can control and taking action, that always leaves me with a feeling of hope and motivation. It definitely helps to ground me if I'm getting too absorbed in thinking and overanalyzing and doubting and all that stuff. It helps to ground me and take me out of that, and it gives me more of a feeling of that I can do this. All I need to do is identify a target and be decisive and take action towards that target, and correct course along the way. Because I think at least for most of my life, hesitation, I think that's one of my biggest weaknesses. And that's probably why I gravitate towards Jocko's message so much. So if that feels like it might be interesting or helpful to you at all, check out his message on the internet and podcast, and he's written books, and so uncovering and cultivating the vision is something that I feel like it'll take a lot of effort towards paying attention and trying to be aware. I used to feel like just used to expect vision and clarity would just come to me unprovoked. But I feel that in order to see, I need to be looking. And the more I look, the more I'll be able to see. So all of this talk about vision and direction and, I guess, goals and stuff like that, there's definitely a balance with it that I feel like needs to be balanced. Balancing vision, targets, goals, direction, you need to balance that with being present and appreciating and enjoying life in its present state. Because I definitely see how if you get too hyper-focused on future goals and stuff like that, it could hamper your ability to enjoy where you're at right now. And so I definitely am trying to, and I do really enjoy what my life is like right now. So it's kind of it's an odd balance to kind of, life is good right now. But at the same time, I want to be going towards something, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Which is the hard part, If you know where you're going, then you can figure out how to get there. If you don't know where you're going, then you're kind of just wandering until you find something cool. And I guess that's what's going on right now. Kind of just taking things as they come, but would be nice to have a stronger direction to go towards, to be able to know where to place the next brick, to move forward, to know what the next step should be. Yeah, I guess that's about all I really have to say. Hope you guys and girls, people out there, are healthy and staying occupied and entertained, and hope you all are finding ways to make the most of this situation and are finding ways to enjoy it. I hope that if you need help, you're receiving the help that you need. Yeah, looking forward to being able to see people again. I guess now's that time when I stop the video, stop the sound recorder, and go downstairs and eat 600 pounds of pasta. And first I liquefy it in a blender. I just put the cold pasta into the blender, and I cover it in sauce, cold sauce, clam sauce, and I blend it up into a liquid consistency, and I pour that onto a hot griddle, and the hot griddle turns it into these pancake-like things, like a pasta cake. It's like a pasta pancake, and then I take those, and I make a stack of them. I cut them up, and it's like a sauce-filled pancake, a savory pancake. And I guess that's what I'm gonna go do. I'm gonna eat about 600 pounds of pasta cakes, and no, I don't eat that much pasta. Pasta is the go-to for me whenever I have not prepared ahead, because it's so fast and easy, and I love it. But yeah, that's definitely it. I didn't figure out what I was going to do until I'm starving kind of food. So, try not to eat too much pasta, but, I love pasta. You all heard Pasta Boy, the song? Pasta Boy. Maybe some of you have. It's a song I made about pasta. Anyway, yeah, I'm done here. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Pasta brings me great joy. That's why around here they call me Pasta Boy.